What is going on today, Epic students? We're going to jump right in, and I want to ask you guys this question. Have you ever gotten lost? And I mean like really lost. Like maybe you're driving in your car and we've become so used to our GPSs that you just follow it, and next thing you know, you're getting off on these weird exits. Melissa's phone, for some reason, used to have us, like, it would be driving and it'd be like, get off at this exit, and so we'd get off at this exit, and then immediately it'd have us hop on the highway again. Now, it wasn't to avoid an accident or anything like that. It was just sending us these weird routes that would lead us back to the same location. Now, years and years and years ago, I know I'm kind of dating myself here, we used to have to go to MapQuest and actually print out our directions. I know some of you maybe older or looking at this saying, well, you know, we use maps. But we use MapQuest, and me and my friend Paul were deciding that we were going to go into Boston. He needed to pick someone up from one of the train stations there. And so we're driving into Boston, and I am the navigator. I am reading off the directions, and we hit this certain point in Boston. And like many cities, the streets can be very confusing, a lot of one-ways. And so we're driving, and I read and I say, okay, it says to make the next right. And so he sees a right coming up, and he turns into it, and it's a construction site. So we turn around, wrong way, pull out, make a right. And so we're driving down, and he goes, okay, where is the next right? And I was like, I don't know. I'm looking. And then I see it, and I'm like, oh, that's a right. And he's like, okay. And he turns down it, and then this crazy thing happened as we're driving down it. Every car on the street is on the wrong side of the road driving towards us. Yeah, we went down the wrong way of a one-way. But it took us a minute to figure that out. In fact, Paul is yelling at the drivers, "You're going the wrong way, stupid." He rolled down his window and started yelling that out. He was a very vocal driver. And he's yelling, "You're going the wrong way," until we hit an intersection. We see that there's a one-way, and we were going the wrong way. Directions can be hard to follow, even with a MapQuest, even with a GPS. They can be hard to follow, but it's even harder to follow if it is a very vague sense of directions. I remember one time we were up in Maine with the youth group that I grew up in, and someone's literal directions were, okay, you're going to drive up the road, and then you're going to make a left where Farmer John's old barn was. You're going to make a left there. You're going to continue down to the old oak tree that crashed when the lightning hit it, and where that old oak tree was, that's where you're going to make a right, and that is how you get to the campsite. I don't know where the barn used to be. I don't know where that tree used to be. I need better directions, but when you follow something so vague, it's very hard. There's directions, and if you look at the map, there's north. If you've ever used the compass, it points you to north. That's the whole point. You're looking for north, and that compass guides you there. But here, if you give me a second to kind of nerd out a little bit, to give you a little brief science lesson, there's actually two different types of north. See, where the compass is guiding you is to magnetic north. I know that sounds weird, but it's guiding you to magnetic north, where the truth is magnetic north is constantly shifting and moving as the Earth spins. North is constantly moving. And so that north that you're following on the compass, in essence, is constantly shifting. But then there's a thing called true north. And that is the north that never moves. It never shifts as the Earth moves. It is this line that you follow. It is this direction you follow. And that is why they call it true north, because it is a direction. It is a north that never changes based on how the world spins. That true north doesn't move. So with directions and with north, the truth is clarity is important. Now, kind of taking that true north and looking at how we live and what we live in, the truth is that our culture is always changing. Like the Earth rotates and magnetic north is constantly changing, our culture is constantly changing. Take, for instance, bell bottoms. At one point, bell bottoms were all the rage. If you don't know what those are the pants that at the bottom, they kind of flare out a whole lot. And then we went through a phase where they were like, that is awful, that is stupid, I can't believe you wore them. And then about a decade later, we went through a phase where bell bottoms were all the rage again. Everyone needed them. Everyone wanted them. It was out, and then it was in, and then it was out, and then it was, okay. At one point, you were only cool if you had a pager. I grew up in that time where I, for some reason, begged my parents, who were poor and didn't have enough money and all that kind of stuff. But before cell phones, it was pagers. And most parents would tell their kids, well, if you need a pager, it's only because you're a drug dealer or a doctor. Are you a drug dealer or a doctor? But everyone had a pager that was cool, and so everyone wanted a pager. And then there was the phase where everyone wanted the Nextel walkie-talkie phone. Now, Google that, YouTube it, or whatever. It was this really annoying but kind of handy feature where it would give it like a little click, and it would give a beep, and then someone would talk to you through the phone, but it was like a walkie-talkie. You could connect to different people. And those were all the rage. Everyone wanted one. And you'd be walking through a store. Now, you think it's annoying when you see people talking on their cell phones. Imagine walking through a store and hearing, and then someone talking, and you can hear the entire conversation because it was on speakerphone. And you would just hear this constantly. You'd be in line checking out, and then you'd hear someone go, did you get the rash cream? I can't get this to go away. And the other person would be like, yep, I got it. And yet that was popular at the time. Now we have smartphones. I mean, you look at how culture has changed. In 2001, around September 11th, police were given such respect and honor. Police and firemen were the ones to run into the buildings when they were coming crashing down. We honored them. People stood on the streets waving American flags. They were happy to be Americans. We were proud of those people that were giving their life for the country. And then you fast forward to now when American flags are being burned and people are saying they're ashamed to be Americans. Police, by some people, are hated. See how culture changes? There was one point where saving yourself for marriage was considered the right thing to do, where people would brag about the fact that they were saving themselves, and others would look at them with honesty and integrity and respect because they were choosing the high road. And now if you talk about how you're saving yourself to marriage, you're treated poorly, they make fun of you. And in fact, you are considered a rarity, an oddity, if you save yourself for marriage. Lifestyle choices that at one point were considered very fringe are now celebrated and honored and given special privileges. See, culture is always changing. Like I said, with the Earth's rotation and magnetic north, it is always changing. What is good today may not be good tomorrow. And so a lot of us are basing our morals and what we believe and what we live by that magnetic north, by what culture says is okay now. But the truth is, culture is always changing. And so for Christians, it's important not to look at what culture says is okay and is not okay, because as I said, it's always changing. As Christians, we need to find and live by that true north, the one that never changes. And for that, we need to start looking to our Creator's direction, because no one knows us better, and no one knows morals better, and no one knows true north than God. See, if culture can't be relied on, and it's always changing, then we need to find that true north that points through the lies and gives us the complete truth. And so over the next couple weeks, I want to look at some of these different things that maybe our culture says, but what true north, what God really lays out in the Bible as important and for us to follow. I want to look at some clear statements that Jesus made that can teach us what direction we are meant to live our life and what choices we should be making and following, not what the world says, but what God says. This is why I don't like doing the video stuff, because I kind of preached the whole message and then went back to turn off the video and found out that I'd only recorded about 9 minutes because my phone cut off. So I get to preach it again. Where was I? So we were talking about how Jesus made these clear statements that I want us to focus on over the next couple weeks. And the truth is that sometimes we can be confused about God and we can feel like, well, God, I'm not getting the answers about some of these things. But when it comes to moral answers and Christianity answers, the truth is he very clearly points it out in the Bible. I mean, this is the same God that in the Old Testament, in Exodus 13, starting in verse 21, did an amazing thing. See, the Israelites had been taken out of Egypt and they were going to the promised land. And Jesus is guiding hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people through the desert where you can get confused, you can be thrown off and all that stuff. And yet it says that in those days, by day, the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way. And by night, in a pillar of fire to give them light so that they could travel by day or by night. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people. I mean, that sounds like a really weird and crazy concept, but there was this huge pillar of fire in the middle of the night guiding them. There was no way to avoid it. There was no way to ignore it. There was this huge flame column that everyone was following. In the day, there was a cloud. God was clearly guiding them and leading them. See, God is about clarity when it comes to guiding and leading, especially about certain things. And yet, this same God that did that, led and guided, did something fast-forwarding centuries later in the New Testament. And it's where we find the first statement that I want us to focus on this week. In John 14, 1-6, it says this, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I'm going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place where I am." Thomas said to him, "Lord, we don't know where you are going, so how can we know the way?" Here's the statement. In verse 6, it says, Jesus answered, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." It is a statement that is true north. It is a statement that is clear and it is precise, and it starts us on our journey. Now, the culture may look at this, and even some Christians nowadays look at this statement and they're like, wow, that's harsh. That's so focused. It's so hard to attain to. We want something better than that. We want something nicer and fluffier. And yet what God says is the truth. But what happens is culture and even some Christians come in and they start saying stuff like, well, no, if you are good enough, you can get into heaven. You just have to be a good person and then God will accept you. If you are nice enough, maybe you go around feeding people and helping them and providing meals, and maybe you see homeless people and you give them money, those things will earn you a spot into heaven. Maybe if you give enough. Now, way back in the day, there was these things in the church called indulgences. And basically what happened is if you were rich enough, the church was selling tickets into heaven. Just a piece of paper wouldn't really get you into heaven. But you would have these people come in and the church would be like, for $1 million, we can give you a ticket to heaven. And so people would do that, and then they didn't need to attend church or whatever because they felt like they had a ticket to heaven. The truth is, you can't give enough to earn a spot into heaven. Some Christians and other people are even saying, well, there's other religions besides Christianity that can lead you to God and can get you into heaven. If you follow Buddha good enough, if you follow Allah good enough, then you can get into heaven. And I've had students ask me this before, well, isn't Allah God? The truth is, if you look at Allah and you look at the God, the true God that we worship, the God that we live for, there is a huge difference between the two. But Christians say, well, if you follow these religions good enough, God will be like, well, you tried, and so, okay. And yet, Jesus clearly stated, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And the only way to go to God and to have salvation is through a relationship with me. And it's tough. It's hard when there is only that one way. But it's clear. While cultures may hope for a nice open thing, while Christians are sometimes hesitant to be like, well, maybe there's other ways because it's easier. Just because it's easier doesn't change the truth. Try this with your teacher. Let's say your teacher gives you a writing assignment. They want a 14-page paper, single space, 12-size font, footnotes at the bottom, for you to write that 14-page paper on World War II. And so you compile everything together. You write out 14 pages and you give it to the teacher, and it is 14 pages on the moon. Not World War II, but the moon. No matter how good that paper is, you fail. Or maybe you decide, hey, you know what, I got this. And so you give 14 pages of paper of colorings that you did of tanks and fighter planes and cruisers that all existed during World War II. And that is your entire paper, is these coloring pages of all those military vehicles that were involved in World War II. Well, that's not the assignment that was given to you, and so you fail. Maybe you decide that you were going to sing a song about World War II. So you look up some songs and you go to your teacher and you belt it out and you have the best vocals and the best lyrics. It still is not the assignment that your teacher gave to you, and so you would fail. Maybe you decide, you know what, I'm going to go out and find World War II vets and I am going to feed them. Hey, let me give you a meal. Hey, let me drive you around. Let me help you around. Wow, that is super nice. That is super amazing. But if that is your project, is just driving around or whatever, it's not the paper your teacher asked you to write. Those are all great attempts, and you may be even seen as this great, nice, caring person, but you miss the clear assignment that your teacher gave you. No matter how nice and no matter how good those things were, it wasn't the guidelines. Jesus makes a clear statement. In the way, the truth, life, and no one comes to the Father except through me. It's clear, it's focused, it's tough, but it's true. The truth is, there is no other way. It's not something you can be kind enough to get. It's not something you can donate millions of dollars to get. There is only one way. And that's why it's so important that we make that decision to choose to live for God, to accept Jesus, to turn away from the old life that we lived and follow Him. Because there is no other way. It's why it's so important that when we are given the opportunities, we share with others, we tell our family and our friends and those that we care about and those that we love that they need Jesus, because it doesn't matter how nice they are. It doesn't matter how much money they give. There is no other way for salvation except through a relationship with Jesus. And the truth is, they need Him. So truth point number 1. There is only one way for salvation. And even though it's tough and even though it's hard, it is clear. And Jesus gives it to us clearly. And that is through a relationship with Him. Father God, I pray that you be with us. And the truth is, some of these concepts, some of these things can be hard because they're so focused, and yet it is truth, and it doesn't change the truth just because it's hard. Father, I pray that you would help us to be people that aren't following culture, but that instead we lead culture for you, that we would be Christians that would realize we need a relationship with you, and then we would share that relationship with others, that we would tell them not only that they need you, but what they gain by having that relationship with you. We thank you and praise you in your name. Amen. All right, guys. Well, the good news is, as you can see, I'm shooting here from Epic Youth Ministry, and October 25th, it's just a couple Sundays away. And as long as everything still looks good, we will actually be meeting on campus starting October 25th. And that carries over into the Wednesday nights and different things like that. And we have a lot of great stuff planned for it. Of course, we will still be doing some of the distance stuff and the masks and all that kind of stuff. But we are looking forward to having you guys out. And if you're like, hey, I just don't feel comfortable, I'm not ready yet to come out, it is okay. We'll still be broadcasting. We'll broadcast those live. If you are looking for something to do, because I know a lot of us are just so sick of Zoom and sick of online stuff, on Wednesday nights up until we meet again on campus, which is after the October 25th. Wednesday nights, I go to the little eatery thing with the Blaze and the Habit, Pizza and La Cañada. And what I do is I sit at a larger table with my food, and other students have been showing up and just hanging out. And then around 7:30, 7:45, I actually have like a little bit of a teaching and a lot of discussion and small group stuff. So if you're interested, starting at 7 o'clock at that eatery thing, meet us over there as long as you are comfortable. And for those that are still like, hey, I'm not comfortable enough with that, I'm not ready for that, that is okay. What we do is we go on Zoom at 7:45 and we set my little phone up there, and you are an extra person at that table, or all 5 or 6 or however many on Zoom. You get to join in at the table. You are your own little small group. You get to be part of the discussions and all that. We just know that it is so important for us to connect in some way. For some, they need that connection outside, and so we do it in the safest way possible. For some, you still want to do online, and that is fine. We still want to provide that for you. We have a lot of great stuff we're working on for Epic. Hopefully, as this pandemic ends, we are working on a lot of great things. I have a bunch of new events that we are planning. We have a lot more outreach over the next 12 months that we want to do. We want to get more involved in people's lives and sharing the gospel and being the hands and feet of God. We're looking at doing some off-campus, maybe Bible studies or small groups off-campus throughout the week. And we're looking at changing some of the format of Epic on Wednesday nights and on Sundays. All of this stuff is exciting. I know sometimes change can be scary, but change can also be good. And we're just looking to continue to minister to you guys and connect with you guys as best we can to grow you into those mature men and women and still have fun. All right, guys.